Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's Keshwani, Keshwani. We are here because we want to learn algebra. Today is our lesson number 198. Day 198, we are in the process of solving word problems from day 101 through 200. And today is our 98th day of solving a word problem. The problem for today is already on the blackboard. Let's read it together, shall we? It says 27 times a certain number, 27 times a certain number exceeds 100 as much as the 60 exceeds 13 times the number. 27 times certain number, that quantity, when you multiply 27 times that number, it exceeds 100 by as much as 60 exceeds 13 times the number. The question simply is, what is that number? Let's do it together, okay? Let's pretend pause the video, do it yourself first before you continue watching it. Let's pretend that the number in question is x. We can call it x, we can call it n, you can call it whatever you like. Now the question now is, how do we express this idea? How do we express this idea? 27 times a certain number, 27 times a certain number exceeds 100. How do we express that concept, that idea? And that has to do with coming up with the right algebraic expression, which is what we learned a long time ago in the beginning of the course, how to evaluate algebraic expression, how to add and subtract algebraic expressions, so forth. How to multiply algebraic expressions, how to divide algebraic expressions, before we moved on to the linear equation and the word problem. We have to come up with the right algebraic expression that shows the notion, the idea of a quantity by which 27 times certain number will exceed 100. So here's the question. If somebody were to come up to us and ask us 120 exceeds 100 by how much? But that's a very simple question. 120 exceeds 100 by how much? 120 exceeds 100 by 20. The question is, how do we find that? Well, 120 exceeds 100 by 120 minus 100. But that's how we find it. If the question were 101 exceeds 100 by how much? 101 exceeds 100 by 1. And how do we find it? 101 minus 100. 121 exceeds 100 by how much? 121 is 21 more than 100. 121 exceeds 100 by 21. Again, how do we find it? We took this 121 and subtracted from it 100. Here the question is 27 times x. 27 times x exceeds 100 by how much? Well, that will be the 27x exceeds 100 by whatever the 27x is and minus 100 from it. That's it. That's the notion. 27x exceeds 100 by whatever this quantity is, 27 times x minus 100. Take away 100 from it, that difference of 27x and 100 will manifest the notion of the amount by which 27x exceeds 100. Let's go to the next one then. The next part we have to figure out is this concept. 60 exceeds 13 times certain number. Well, let's do it together here. 60 exceeds by whatever we put in here. If the question was 60 exceeds 59 by how much? Well, 60 exceeds 59 by 1. How do we find that? 60 exceeds 59 by 60 minus 59. So there you go. If the question were 60 exceeds 10 by how much? 60 exceeds 10 by 50. In other words, 60 is 50 more than 10. How do we find it? By subtracting 10 from 60. So one more. 60 exceeds 57 by how much? 60 exceeds 57 by 3. How did we find it? By taking the 60 and subtracting from it this quantity 57. Here question is 60 here what we have to do is show an idea of the amount by which 60 exceeds 13 times the number. 13 times the number. So 60 exceeds 13 times this quantity by 60 minus that quantity. Voila, that's it. The rest is simple. The rest is simple. Question tells us that this quantity on the top that you see there in the red, 27 times the number exceeds 100 by whatever this amount is. Question tells us that this quantity equals that quantity. The rest is simple. The rest is downhill. We just equate this quantity to this quantity and solve for x. That's all. Very simple. The biggest hurdle, the biggest problem sometimes for some people turns out having to come up with the right expressions. This expression right here, now we know, has to equal this expression. These are expressions. This is an expression. This is an expression. When we equate the two expressions to each other, it becomes an equation. That's why it's called an equation. An equation has to manifest some idea, some notion of one quantity equating the other. There is no equal sign here. This is not an equation. This is an expression. 27x minus 100. This expression right here has to equal by as much as. By as much as is in English language it means equals. Or rather in mathematical language, by as much as, how do you translate it? By putting an equal sign. By as much as. So however much 27 times this quantity exceeds 100, that's how much 60 exceeds 13 times the quantity. That's what it is. Let's solve for it. Let's add. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of this parenthesis, because parentheses serve no purpose other than being a known. The good question is, why did I put them in the first place? But we won't ask that question. Let's add 13x to both sides. So this is the plus sign, this is the plus sign. We are adding 13x to both sides. In other words, if somebody tells you, bring this 13x to this side, okay, I'm going to first say it in the childish way, and then I'm going to say the same thing in the grown-up way. In a childish manner, you would say, let's add 13x to both sides of the equation. Let's add 13x to both sides of the equation. That's the proper way, that's the academic way, but the more grown-up way would simply be, somebody will tell you, bring this 13x to this side, or bring 13x to this side. Another way of saying the same thing is, add 13x to both sides so that we can get rid of this 13x with this 13x, negative 13x with the positive 13x, and transpose this negative 13x to this side over here, and by virtue of doing so, it changes the sign from negative 13x to positive 13x. So this negative 13x right here and a positive 13x right here, they cancel out, and here we have 13x plus 27x. 13 plus 27 is 40, I believe. Now we got to bring this 100 to that side, and how do we do that? By adding positive 100 to both sides. This is a negative 100, so we need to add positive 100. So this is the negative, this is the positive, they cancel out. And the 100 ends up here as a positive quantity. This is a positive quantity, so we end up with 40x equals 160. Well, that's very straightforward. If 40x equals 160, x must be 4. X must be 4. That's it. We're going to quickly verify this thing. We're going to quickly verify this thing to make sure that what we have done is in fact correct. So 27 times a certain number which we are claiming to be 4. So 27 times a certain quantity which turns out to be 4 is how much? Well, I don't know how much 27 times 4 is. I don't go around memorizing it. I do know that 25 times 4 is 100. That I do know. If 25 times 4 is 100, then 27 times 4 bloody well be 108. Because we got 4 2's, extras, that is 25 and then 2 extras, 4 of them. So the question is, how much this quantity, 27 times this number, how much this quantity exceeds 100? Well, this quantity, 108, exceeds 100 by 8. And 13 times the number, 13 times the number, 13 times 4, again 13 times 4, let's see, 13 times is 2, and then 12, carry 1, 52, which is just as well, because I was about to say that I don't know how much 13 times 4 is, but I do know that 15 times 4 is 60, so 13 times 4 should be 8 less than that, 52. The question is, how much does 60 exceeds 52? 60 exceeds 52 by 8. Listen carefully. 60 exceeds 52 that we just found. 60 exceeds 52 by 8, by the same quantity as 27 times the number, which turned out to be 108, exceeds 100 by 8. So we have shown that this answer is correct because 27 times the quantity exceeds 100 by the same amount as 60 exceeds 13 times that quantity. They exceed by 8. That's it. We are done for today. I will see you tomorrow on day number 198, 199, penultimate problem before I get to 200. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do once I reach 200, but I'll think about it when the time comes. I just used the word penultimate in the sentence. Let's learn that word, shall we? I'm just trying to find out which day we learned it. The word again was penultimate. If I can find it. Oh, there you go. Oh, day number 11. Let's make a note of it, shall we? Where should we put it? I'm going to put it here. I don't know how low you can read. Just like this video that you're watching on Algebra, I've also put together some videos which will help you improve your vocabulary, particularly if you're planning in the near future to sit for the GRE, GMAT or SAT or TOEFL. You need to have a decent vocabulary, and for that reason I have put together some videos on vocabulary to help you improve your vocabulary, as I said. And if you want to learn this word properly, the word is penultimate. It is to be pronounced penultimate, it's P-E-N and then ultimate, but one does not pronounce that as penultimate, it's penultimate, which simply means, which is a very fancy way of saying second to the last. So what I said is, I'm going to use the word again in the context one more time in the sentence like I just used a little while ago. Tomorrow, I said, we shall be doing our penultimate problem, second to the last problem, because tomorrow is going to be 199, and that will be the penultimate problem before I get to the last one, the day 200. I'll see you then, okay? Bye now.